Welcome to the special end of year episode of Soulful Entrepreneur podcast. I'm super excited because as we are wrapping up the year, I wanted to share 10 transformative lessons that I was able to gather from the conversations that I had with the remarkable and amazing guests over the past few months. Each conversation that I had was packed with powerful lessons, from learning how to embrace failure to cultivating growth mindset or even planning your exit strategy. If you like any of the lessons that you will hear today, I would like to ask you to write down which one and also why you found this lesson useful in the comment section below. And as a result, the best comment will win a planner that we are launching pretty soon. It's a very exciting thing that's going to happen in 2025. So I wanted to share that with all of you. Thank you, and let's dive in.
Startup building is not a science; it's an art. Nothing is figured out. Nothing. It's not mathematics. You can't calculate things. It's just you figure out on the go. Like Reid Hoffman, I think, was saying that building a startup is like jumping from the skyscraper and building a plane while falling.
Yeah, I heard a parachute, but I think plane makes more sense.
Yeah. So I think it's a very stressful experience and so on.
Yeah.
You have to persevere. You have to be determined. Don't fail. I don't think failing is good, but you have to do the right things. And I think there is a lot of good books and then good knowledge, like Startup School of YC, that. There is a lot of good knowledge just available that you can learn from and not do the mistakes that we've been doing back in the day. So failing is never fun.
Yeah.
But it's just part of the game. And if you fail, do it the right way and learn and go to the next subject. I think one of the biggest things that we are losing when failing as startup is losing relationship, because you build this important relationship with your co-founder, with your team, with your investors, people who believed in you, people who didn't go to work for Google but came to work for you, like 10 times less salary, and they believed in you, in your vision, in your ability to lead and manage. So I think the best thing is if you fail at this startup, but you keep all of this relationship, you learn together and build another thing together, that's the best. If we're talking about startup building, like an entrepreneurial skills, there's a few things you can learn from books, from videos online, on YouTube videos and so on. There's a few things you can learn. First, you have to focus on the problem. You really understand the problem and the customer. You have what we call customer development and so on, talk to customers. You have to go build minimal viable products. You have to focus on business since the beginning, my opinion. We are in my favorite definition of startup is inventing new business models. It's not about building technology or product or designing stuff. It's about inventing new business models that were not possible before, but they become possible because of technology.
Yeah. So even if it's like a small, tiniest change, let's say in an idea that already exists, but the small, tiny change can create innovation. And using, let's say,
it can be small change or large. It doesn't matter. But if you kind of create new ways of doing business, usually because of technology, sometimes because of deep expertise or great processes that you can build and so on, but that's extremely hard. Technology is easier. It changes all the time. Younger people tend to have more focus on technology and easier to adopt that and so on. So we turn new technologies into businesses, and I think that's startup building. So if I could teach myself, I would try to teach those basics of building startup.
Right. So that's the advice you would give to yourself. What about if you were to give an advice to an aspiring entrepreneur who today wants to start a startup? What would you tell them what type of skill would you tell them to develop now, considering this AI revolution that we're going through?
I think regardless of what revolution is happening, launch early. Launch the earliest, the most discomfortable the uncomfortable launch is the best. So understand the problem and launch early.
Yeah.
You will learn from your customer more than anything you can learn from any other source of truth, books, videos, YC, whatever you think will teach you skills. It doesn't matter. Learning from the market, from the real customer, that's the best. So launch early, and then you will know more than anybody else on the market, just because you have launched and you see how they use the product.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. I think
Thank
this
you.
was a super cool discussion.
I don't experience any growth when I am in my comfort zone. I love also being sometimes in my comfort zone with myself at my peace.
Yeah.
But those are moments for rest. But then when you gain this peace, you have this rest, then again, this world is just moving. You have to go and again be part of that great movement. And there you have to adapt every second. It's a new world. Every other new moment brings challenges, opportunities, new ways of thinking, new ways of being. But again, there is one thing that never changes, which is, I would say, my inner child, if I can call it that way, that has this absolute freedom. And my adult who needs to be always on the forefront of the happenings to protect my child, because this child is the source of life also for me in many ways. But also knowing that the awareness where you exist, where the world is right now. One thing that I would say that I struggled a lot and I'm still struggling is the time itself, because I always have this assumption that things should be moving much faster than they are moving because of the efforts that we put. But we understand that this is not only about our efforts, it's about the world. There are processes, there are things that have a completely different pace of change, while we want this change to happen sometimes faster. And this is something that I have to become friends again and again with time. This is something that I'm still working on, to also be at peace with our efforts and the pace of change.
Yeah. I'm going to say something very spiritual, like a guru right now, but I think there is no time, right? It's just something that people made up as in terms of time. So probably what you need to develop is more like patience, because you plant the seeds and you're like, okay, guys, come on, it's time to grow. It's time to become trees. And so probably patience is where, because you put in a lot of effort and time into something, and then you're expecting this to grow super fast, but it takes time because it's a large initiative. These are problems that haven't been tackled decades on end. So yeah, I think that probably, if I'm not mistaken, of course.
Yes, and it comes also to the situations that we want to change, the challenge, but also it comes to the business growth, like in how many places we should be and we can be, and all the processes. It just takes more time, and probably sometimes I'm thinking that my issue with the time is also that there is such a big urgency because people are dying. Yeah. And this is happening every second, every minute, and then by just understanding that if we were more committed and united, then we could help those people much faster, because it's an urgent issue. And this urgency then creates in me this conflict with the time and the actors who are able to influence the situation. That's the only piece where I don't have patience, and I don't have, that's the thing of waiting, because in my understanding, in my belief, we can create the perfect conditions or good enough conditions around that seed to grow with the maximum speed.
I want to talk about the idea of originating circles. I think it fascinated me a lot when we talked about this before, and I've really done some inventory of the people around me and thinking about being mindful who I interact with, because it really affects us subconsciously.
Yeah.
Can you share that idea?
Well, I mean, think about yourself in the center of a circle, right? And then think about your daily conversations, weekly conversations that you have. Who's in your life? Your husband, your child, if you have child, your coworkers, I don't know, your barista at your coffee shop, the people that you regularly see, right? Um, you are not one static, limited person, right? All of these people, when they interact with you, create who you are. They originate you, right? So if you surround yourself with people that speak to your highest possibility, to speak to your greatness, hey, you're beautiful, hey, you're, maybe a boss or a coworker says, oh, even in the worst of, challenging times, you can do it, right? Oftentimes another human beings or a set of other human beings' belief in you gives you the juice for you to go and accomplish whatever you're going to accomplish. Versus if you're in a toxic environment where it's dog eat dog, and people are always like, you're always having to worry about who's going to kill you, right? Or whatever. And imagine because it's all energy, right? It's like, imagine that operating in that environment versus a place where everybody believes in you, right? But you also have a choice, right? Who do you surround yourself with? Whose advice do you listen to? Which books do you read? Which podcasts do you read? How do you spend your time? Are you sitting there kind of like mindlessly, swiping right, left, up, down, and then like just, after a while you're like, okay, well, that's your environment. What? I mean, it's very predictable what you're gonna produce, right? I mean, it's like, as I said, whatever that you. I mean, like, as my wife says this, because you can't eat like that and want to look like this.
That's true.
Right? So it's like, it's really about that. So that originating circle is as you're interacting with it, right? Imagine that this is the sources of energy that actually build you up. And vice versa, you for others, right? Because you also are in other people's origin. You're in your husband's origin, so your parents' origin, whoever that you're regularly contacting with. And often, like having conversation with, right? Because you, on a daily basis, you might see 1,000 people, like from the day you leave your house to the work to whatever. You visually, there's a bunch of stuff coming in, but who are you interacting with? And if somebody is in a situation that they are not generating new things. Like they're always talking about. That's why I don't really like to talk about too much about the past and stuff like that, because these are just like snippets of what has happened. Like there's a lot of other things that have happened that we would.
You might not even remember most of it.
Or remember correctly.
Yep.
Or remember correctly, because it's because as time passes, your memory of things becomes very, very foggy. Like it's like, did that really happen, or did it not happen, and how did it perceive, and I mean, how did it land on you, whatever. So what matters is now. What matters is now. It's just always now, right? And imagine that the people that are around you, that you actually pay attention. Who's around you? Until you sit down and actually write, say, okay, who else am I interacting with? Like in a 1 week, like imagine in 1 week period. One exercise that I recommend people to do is the next 20 people you meet, ask them, what are you reading? So if at the end of that 20th person, you get to a point there like, okay, 19 of them aren't reading anything. That's your originating circle.
I think one thing that, as you were talking, I was thinking about growth mindset. Let's say when a person doesn't continue growing and learning, and they just have this blinders on and they're focusing on one thing only, and they think they know better and they don't need to learn anything else, it leads to a process of crystallization. So you become like a stone. You stop learning. You stop growing. You're not flexible anymore.
Right.
In your case, you have been, since I started watching you, let's say following you on social media and then seeing your LinkedIn page, I've seen you already done like a couple of certificate programs and then speaking here and there and then taking this lecture, taking that lecture. What drives you to learn continuously? What is this driver?
Yeah. So maybe I can answer this from again like a philosophical perspective first, and then I'll
We
tell
love
you.
philosophical perspectives. Go ahead.
So so I do Muay Thai kickboxing. I fight,
Right.
and when you fight, there's this interesting kind of period of adjustment. You start feeling very weak when you start training. So I remember when I first started training, I don't even remember how old I was, but you feel very weak because you go in and you realize how skillful all these people are, and how good they are, and they're kicking your butt, right? You're getting punched in the face, you're getting kicked, you're going home and you're sore and whatever, and it's very humbling. And it forces you to kind of look within and understand your place in a world of in the animal kingdom, right? You're just like, okay, I know where I belong because there's all these people, younger, older, doesn't matter, they can kick my butt. And then at the 6-month mark, when you start developing some skills, you're like, I got this, now I'm the one that can kick other people's butts, the new
Right.
people that are coming in, and you get this interesting kind of confidence boost that comes. And until you start training with people that are a bit more advanced, and then you get humbled again.
Yeah.
And in that first kind of 6 to 8 month period, every single martial artist kind of goes through this process where they calibrate, and then they realize, oh, there's levels to this shit forever. Like, this does not stop. There's always better than better. And because in martial arts, it's just like a matter of life and death, like right away. It's so palpable, you feel it so much,
Right.
that there is no way of escaping it, right? Whereas when it comes to mental calibration, you can create psychological walls around you as to why you are so good and why you are the man or the woman, why, I had all these successes, so you should listen to me, and et cetera, et cetera. And we cherry pick all of these kind of success stories to build our name and our brand and whatever, so then we can climb the hierarchy and the social status, right? We see this all the time. People do it all the time. I'm sure people can think of those people as I'm talking about it, whether it's their boss or their colleague or so on. And in fighting, you can't do that. You can't cherry pick all the weak people to
like amplify the
right.
successes and
Exactly, you
downgrade
can't
the
do that.
failures.
It's just good versus bad. It's just pure. It's so pure. And when I kind of experienced that, I kind of took that with me as an underlying kind of theme to my life.
Yeah.
And you realize that you can do that emotionally, you can do that psychologically, you can do that intellectually.
Yeah.
There's levels to this, and it's a never-ending journey of constantly trying to get better and read the books and take the classes and so on. So that's my philosophy on life. I think we kind of go through these stages of kind of a lot of learning and developing. Then you hit a plateau where you're able to apply those new learnings into your life until you hit another kind of tipping point, and then you kind of go again into and I think it's important for founders and so on to constantly do that, is to every couple of years to take a class in something so you can kind of develop. I think life is nobody has kind of the blueprint to life. Everybody chooses the kind of things that they want to engage with, the things that they want to invest in. Some people choose to go live in New Hampshire in the mountains and do a job that does not require all these leadership classes at MIT and so on. And they, it could be argued that they are much happier and they live much more fulfilling lives than, let's say, those of us that are in the Silicon Valleys and the Bostons and all these places. It's just a matter of what you choose to kind of go into. And if you've chosen this life, then shut up and do the work. And there is no time to discuss about all these anxieties and all these problems and so on. Go exercise, go do some yoga, do some work, and just work around. I'm not saying
That's a very stoic approach.
Sure, but why is it that we have to kind of look and kind of divide every single emotion into sets of emotions and talk about all of these things and look within and go into a therapist every single day and talk about all these problems, which exacerbates that same problem, and you ruminate. This is a psychological term of rumination, where a lot of these therapists are actually making money off of your rumination, right? So you create the problem out of a problem that shouldn't be there in the first place. If you've chosen this life, if you've chosen it, then educate yourself, create the kind of ecosystem and the support system around you so you can kind of manage that. That's how I'm looking at it. Me personally, I'm not judging anybody that doesn't do that. All I'm saying is that once I have chosen this life, I cannot afford anxiety, and I do not welcome anxiety. When I feel anxiety coming in, I just go hit the bag, I run, and within 15, 20 minutes of endorphins entering my brain and into my body, I'm able to very quickly kind of get over whatever. I figure it out, and I just move on.
I remember one of the advices that I got when I moved to the Bay. During the program at Skydeck, I met Will. He's a partner at Swift Ventures. He's awesome, and he has done a lot of startups, exited, and then now he has this VC.
So he's a VC.
Yeah, and he was like, I asked like, what kind of advice you have for me, and he was like, as a founder, just try to step back time to time and ask yourself. Try to feel the reality where you are with that idea. That's a very good skill to have. And as an entrepreneur, you should be flexible and open-minded to see what's happening around. Don't put yourself in a bubble and see also only inside and being loving with your technology and this everything. No, just see outside and be open to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, in terms of defining it, I mean, for me, it comes down to people, right? Like knowing how to interact with people, knowing how to inspire people, knowing how to understand how each person operates, what motivates them, etc. And then knowing how to bring people together. To me, emotional intelligence has a lot to do with kind of calibrating and collaborating with people in a way that 1 + 1 = more than 2 type thing, right? Like, so I think the best leaders are the ones that are able to make people around them better than they actually think they can be, right? And I think a lot of that is pure emotional intelligence. In terms of my own journey and growth on that front, I think it's a combination. I think there's some natural abilities that people have, just like with IQ, right? Like some people are just smarter. Their brain works in a way that they can solve problems, let's say technical problems or math problems. They can do it faster, whereas for others, it'll take a little bit longer. And emotional intelligence, I think, is similar. Some of it is kind of who you are. It's part of your core. That's what you're born with, but it all comes down to how you cultivate that, right? Like and how much effort you put into to make your strength, play a bigger role in the things that you do. I think that's one of the things that I started figuring out probably a little bit later in my life, probably post grad school, where I started realizing that I'm best off to identify the things I'm really good at and kind of doubling down on them versus try and make up for things that maybe don't come as naturally to me. And so as soon as kind of that light bulb went on in my head, I definitely doubled down on the emotional intelligence piece, and that served me really, really well and continues to serve me well.
We started Impact Hub with 5 co-founders, 1 staff member. I was the first executive director of the hub, and now there are 3 locations. Impact Hub has 3 locations: Yerevan, Syunik, Impact Hub Syunik, that's based in Goris, and Impact Hub Gyumri. And it's got 30 plus employees and is, has dozens of programs. So Impact Hub is flying, without me. I'm still on the board of directors and super happy to continue to engage at that level. But the day-to-day and the programs and all of that are being run by an awesome team of people, and I'm super proud of that. And I would like to just take a moment to say that I think the best thing people can do when they start an organization, whether in Armenia or not, is to also make sure they have an exit plan. I don't think it's healthy for organizations to be associated with one personality or one person. And for me, not that I had an exit plan. We had a Velvet Revolution, and then I left the Impact Hub to join the government, and we can maybe talk about that later. But that was the point at which I left the hub, and then the hub flew by itself.
By saying outstanding founders, we can define it in very different ways. There are several definitions for this, but for us, is outstanding founder are those founders who have the ability to learn new things quickly and adapt to a new change, because change is happening like so quick right now. Acceleration of change is really fast, and they need to adapt new environment really fast. If they don't have the ability to kind of learn very quickly, they will not manage to grow. Another characteristics that we define and we are looking for to see in a founder is being an open-minded, trying to think outside of the box, and to see the problem, to approach the problem from different corners, and also being an open to feedback, because this is really important to take the feedback. And there are some others, like, for example, being honest with yourself, being honest with your team, with your investor, keeping the transparency, thinking big, the courage, especially because you need to have the courage to set bigger goals, right? And you have to have the courage to face the failure and to take the learnings from it, to take the insights, because if you are not taking any learnings from your failures, you are not going to build a great product. These are, a few important key definitions. There are several others.